Today, I'm going to be challenging myself to build a massive clone base in only 24 hours. So let's get right into the build. Starting off this build, I start off with a pretty big base plate. I believe it's 32 by 40. I started off this build by kind of laying out where I wanted the base to be and where the walls were going to be. And as for the planet this base was going to be on, I decided to make it on the planet of Callum, seen in the opening scene of The Bad Batch. So I started off by adding this slanted section, which I had pre-built, but I think it looked really nice on there. I've used it on previous projects before, or at least a similar design. And then I kind of started to figure out where I was going to put the door, which yet again I'm using from a design I've used previously. So then I kind of started tiling off the area where the speeder bike was going to go. So I wanted to have a little speeder parking area for some kind of vehicles and maybe like a little staging area for the clones to get ready for their battle. And while a lot of people do think that Callum is an ice world, it actually isn't. In Bad Batch, it is wintertime, so I did decide to add some snow along the landing platform and on the base a little bit. And I started adding some rocks to the little walls on the side of the base, which I think ended up looking pretty good. And on top of that, I started adding some snow. And I actually, in the end, decided to move it over to the edge. And I continued tiling off the speeder area with some patches of snow and dark gray to kind of make the ground look weathered. And I also kind of started laying out where everything was going to be on the interior by putting a door there and kind of started covering up some of the filler brick with just gray bricks. After I worked on the rock work for a while, I also continued tiling off, which looks really great. And then I kind of started putting filler brick for the tiling of the interior. And started putting some support to the interior, and then I kind of shifted my focus back to the exterior. Where I started kind of adding some greebling and continued to tile off that area. And I kept trying to work on the terrain, which was really difficult for me. And I ended up, you can see I'm working on now, I ended up completely scrapping all that and basically just restarted the terrain later. Then I can continue on the interior, tiling off the floor in dark bluish gray, which looks really nice. Working on the walls some more, with a ladder going up to the roof. And I kind of tested out some minifigure placements, as you can see as I'm building, but none of these were the final ones. Then I kind of continued to reinforce the roof and start tiling that off. So I kind of built this elevated area for a turret. which you can see I built here. I think that looks really nice. It's kind of a low profile, but still pretty big turret. I really liked how it ended up looking. And then for the interior, I kind of added this little control panel here, which I built a little elevated section up next to, which ended up looking pretty good. Here you can see my finished project of the interior walls and tiling. And then at long last, with less than an hour left on my timer, I finally started working on the terrain. Which on this challenge I did go a bit over 24 hours, but I did have to sleep, so I don't count that time as used time, so it did take about 30 hours overall. But if you don't count me sleeping, it was about 24. I added a large section of snow and rock work, and kind of made the center section coming out from the platform in brown. They kind of look like it's maybe been shoveled away, all the snow and all the rocks moved away so that the spear can get through easily and people can walk down there easily. So I worked on figuring out to add some more little patches of snow and rock work, which I think ended up looking really great the way I did it. So with that complete, I finished everything with this build, and I started adding the minifigures, a clone gunner by the door, this Commander Wolf from Republic Customs, and then I used this speeder bike design from the new AT-AT. And then for the interior, I added a clone trooper sitting in there, another grunt trooper patrolling. And in the interior, I added a medic and a injured clone. And for the roof, I added another clone gunner and a standard grunt trooper. And then I just added a few little crates and boxes to the interior to kind of finish it off. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this build ended up looking. I think it looks really great, and especially for only about 24 hours, I think it was a very nice build all around.